Dear one, stop scrolling for just one moment because something you did quietly, something you never spoke about, something you never used to make yourself look good, has just come into the light. And it did not come into the light through you. Before we go any further, I want you to do something small with me. Type, "I claim this" in the comments below. This tells your soul, and it tells me that you are here, that you are open, and that this message is landing exactly where it needs to land. So go ahead, type it now, and then come back to these words. Good. Now let's begin. Dear soul, pause for a moment. Welcome to the Angel's Message for You original channel. Please check the channel name carefully. It's Angel's Message for You. This is our only official channel. Beware of copycat and fake channels. Stay connected to the original source to receive authentic angel messages and true blessings. Before we begin, a heartfelt thank you to dear Stephen, Gail Such, Nina and Lee for sowing a seed for Soulmate through your Ko-Fi. Super thanks. May this seed return to you multiplied with Soulmate blessings, divine protection, love, well-being, and abundance. May the angels guide and watch over you every step of your journey. Thank you for your beautiful support. Let's know what angels want us to know. The person whose heart has been quietly tied to yours, in ways neither of you has fully understood, is sitting right now with a truth that has changed the way they see you. Take a breath. There are discoveries that make people smile. There are discoveries that make people question everything. And then there are discoveries that leave a person completely silent, because the past suddenly looks different than it did yesterday. This is the third kind. Your soulmate has just learned that there was a moment somewhere back in time when you protected them without asking for anything in return. You did not wait for a thank you. You did not plan to ever tell them what you had done. What they discovered was not a small act of kindness. It was a window into something about your heart that they have been trying to understand for a very long time. You believed that moment had quietly disappeared into the past. You believed no one needed to know. Maybe that is exactly why you stayed silent all this time. There are people who do good things because they want to be seen doing them. And then there are gentle souls who quietly stand between someone they love and something that could hurt that person, and then simply walk away before anyone can even say thank you. Dear one, this is you. You were never trying to become the hero of their story. You were never trying to create a debt they would have to repay one day. You simply saw something they could not see yet, understood something they did not yet understand, and you made a choice. You protected their peace. You protected their dignity. You protected something precious around them while letting them believe everything had simply worked itself out on its own. But now a piece of that hidden story has surfaced. And what makes this moment so powerful is not only what you did. It is the reason you never told them. They found out almost by accident. That is what has shaken them the most. This was not you confessing a sacrifice. You did not walk up to them and say, "Look what I did for you." You did not send a message hoping they would finally appreciate you. The truth reached them through a completely different doorway. A casual conversation, a forgotten detail, someone remembering something out loud, a sentence that was never meant to carry so much weight, spoken so simply that at first it barely registered. At the beginning, your soulmate did not fully understand what they were hearing. They thought maybe there had been some kind of mix-up. Then another small detail came out, and then another. Slowly the pieces began to connect, and the person telling the story had no idea that every single sentence was quietly rearranging something deep inside your soulmate's heart. There was a moment when they went unusually quiet. Picture that silence with me, dear one. It was not an empty silence. It was a silence full of memories rising to the surface all at once. They began traveling back, in their mind, to a chapter of their life they thought they already understood completely. They remembered what was happening around them at that time. They remembered feeling confused about certain things. They remembered how, out of nowhere, certain situations seemed to shift and settle. Something that could have hurt them deeply never reached them at full force. A situation that could have embarrassed them somehow softened before it ever touched them. A conversation that could have turned against them somehow changed direction at the last moment. Maybe they called it luck back then. Maybe they told themselves that circumstances had simply changed on their own. Maybe they even believed someone else deserved the credit for it. They never knew that there was a quiet heart standing somewhere just outside their awareness, saying in its own gentle way, "Let this stop here. They do not need to carry this weight." And now, finally, they know. But there is something even deeper, starting to stir inside them. They are asking themselves why you never told them. That single question has become more powerful even than the discovery itself. If you had wanted praise, dear one, there were so many chances to bring it up. If you had wanted some kind of leverage over their emotions, you could have reminded them the next time things became hard between you. If you had wanted to prove that you cared more than they did, you had the proof sitting right there the whole time. And yet you said nothing. You let them misunderstand certain things about you. You even let them, in some small way, underestimate how deeply you actually cared. And that realization has touched a place inside them that no loud declaration of love could ever reach. Sit with that for a second, dear one. Think about how rare it actually is for someone to let another person misjudge them, simply to protect that person's comfort. Most people cannot stand being misunderstood. Most people will correct the record the moment someone doubts their love, even if correcting it means breaking a promise to stay quiet. But you did something different. You let the misunderstanding stand. You let them think what they wanted to think about you, because their peace mattered more to you than your own reputation in their eyes. That kind of restraint does not come from indifference. It comes from a very deep, very settled kind of love, the kind that does not need constant proof to keep existing. There is a reason quiet love can be more powerful than loud affection. Words can be beautiful, yes, but words can also be rehearsed. Gestures made in front of other people can be impressive, but sometimes the truest measure of someone's heart is what they choose to do when absolutely no one is watching. Your soulmate is sitting with that exact difference right now. Think about it for a moment, dear one. So much of the world teaches us that love should be loud to be real. We are taught to look for the big declaration, the public gesture, the words spoken in front of a crowd. And there is nothing wrong with those things when they are honest. But somewhere along the way, many people forget that the deepest kind of love often moves in the opposite direction. It moves toward quiet. It moves toward the background. It moves toward the version of care that never asks to be witnessed at all. You already know this in your bones, even if you have never said it out loud. You have felt what it is like to care about someone so much that you would rather protect their peace than protect your own image. You have felt the strange, private satisfaction of doing something good and simply letting it exist, without needing anyone else to confirm that it happened. That feeling is sacred. It is one of the purest forms of love a human being can offer another human being, and very few people ever learn how to give it. They are remembering the times they questioned you. They are remembering the moments they wondered whether you truly cared at all. They are remembering the times your silence felt like distance, like you were pulling away from them. What they could not see back then is that your silence was not always absence. Sometimes your silence was protection. Sometimes you were quietly carrying knowledge that you refused to ever use as a weapon. Sometimes you were choosing their peace over your own chance to look good in front of them. This discovery has pulled one particular memory to the surface more than any other. They remembered something you said a long time ago, something that felt completely ordinary at the time. Maybe it was a simple reassurance. Maybe you told them not to worry. Maybe you said everything would eventually settle down. They heard those words back then without knowing what was standing quietly behind them. Today, those same words sound completely different. They are realizing that you may have already known exactly what was happening. You may have already made a choice that kept a painful situation from ever reaching them. That old, ordinary memory has become almost too tender to sit with now, because they can finally hear everything you did not say. You never said, "I fixed this." You never said, "You owe me." You never said, "Remember what I gave up for you." You simply let them keep living their life, undisturbed. There is another layer to this that they have not fully worked through yet. Protecting someone does not always look like standing up to an enemy or dramatically rescuing them from something everyone can see. Sometimes protection is refusing to repeat something that would embarrass them. Sometimes it is quietly defending their character when they are not even in the room. Sometimes it is gently correcting a false impression before it can spread. Sometimes it is choosing to carry the heavier burden because you already know the other person has enough weight on their shoulders. Sometimes it is refusing to expose someone's soft, vulnerable place even after things between you have grown complicated. And sometimes, dear one, protection means holding information powerful enough to hurt someone and deliberately deciding that your love will never use it that way. Your soulmate has realized that in that moment, whatever it was, you had a real chance to choose yourself instead. You could have protected your own image. You could have stepped back and said, "This is not my problem to carry." Instead, something inside you simply refused to leave them unprotected in that moment. Even knowing they might never find out. Even knowing they might never say thank you. Even knowing you would receive absolutely nothing back in return. That is the detail they cannot stop thinking about. They have started wondering how many other quiet moments like this one they may have missed completely. And that single question is opening doors inside them that they were not fully prepared to open. What if there were other times when you cared for them quietly, without any announcement? What if some of the things they once read as coldness or distance were actually restraint, a kind of holding back out of love? What if they judged your heart only by what you allowed them to see on the surface, while your deepest loyalty was happening somewhere they could not see it at all? Your soulmate is not simply reconsidering one single event anymore. They are reconsidering you as a whole person. There is emotion rising in them right now, and it is a complicated kind of emotion. Gratitude is there, yes, but so is a gentle kind of regret. Not the kind of regret meant to punish anyone, but the uncomfortable feeling of realizing they may have formed opinions about you before they had the full picture. They remember the times they silently wanted you to prove yourself more. They remember hoping for bigger, more visible gestures. They remember wondering why you did not fight louder for their attention. And now they are discovering that while they were quietly waiting for visible proof of your love, invisible proof had already been given long before, and it had cost you something real. That part is only just now coming into the light. At first, what they heard sounded like a simple, sweet act of protection. But as the conversation kept unfolding, they realized your choice had actually required you to give something up. Maybe it was your reputation in someone else's eyes. Maybe you quietly accepted blame that you could have easily redirected onto someone else. Maybe you lost an opportunity that mattered to you. Maybe you kept a secret that would have made your own life easier if you had chosen to reveal it instead. Whatever shape it took, your silence was never free. There was a real cost attached to it, and you paid that cost quietly without ever sending them the bill. Dear soul, Before we continue, if your heart has been touched by this message, you may want to do something quietly meaningful for the soulmate you have been protecting in ways they may never have known. Sometimes love doesn't need recognition. Sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is simply hold an intention for someone's peace, healing, safety, and happiness, even from a distance. If you feel guided to place this connection under an extra layer of love, faith, and positive intention, you can sow your seed for your soulmate through Ko-Fi Super Thanks. You'll find the Ko-Fi link in the video description and pinned comment. Let this seed be your personal expression of love, a quiet intention that says, "Wherever my soulmate is, may they be protected, healed, guided, and surrounded by love as our paths unfold in the right way and at the right time." You don't have to do this. Only follow your heart if you genuinely feel led. And if you do, may your kindness return to you through peace, hope, and blessings. And may the love you have protected in secret be surrounded by divine light. Let's continue with the angel message. Your soulmate asked a simple question the moment they understood this. Why didn't they ever tell me? And the answer they received was simple too. Because they didn't want you to ever feel like you owed them anything. That one sentence changed everything in the room. For several long seconds, your soulmate had nothing to say. There are moments when the heart understands something before the mind can even catch up and make sense of it. This was one of those moments for them. Something inside them softened all at once, because suddenly they were not hearing a story about someone trying to win their heart. They were hearing a story about someone who had cared for them deeply even without any guarantee of ever being chosen back. And dear one, that difference matters more than almost anything else. Your soulmate has known affection before in their life. They have heard promises before. They have experienced kindness that came with strings attached, kindness that was really benefiting the giver all along. They know exactly what performance feels like when it is dressed up as love. But quiet, secret protection touches an entirely different part of the human heart, because it raises a beautifully unsettling question. What kind of person protects me even when they know I might never find out? They are asking that exact question about you right now, and the answer is stirring something emotional inside them. They are beginning to understand that some of your greatest expressions of care might have been the very things you chose to keep completely invisible. There were moments when you could have exposed someone and chose not to. Moments when you could have repeated private, painful words and chose silence instead. Moments when your own feelings were hurt and still you refused to damage someone's dignity out of retaliation. You understood something that many people only learn after they have already lost someone precious. If love turns into a weapon the moment it feels disappointed, then maybe it was never truly love in its deepest, purest form to begin with. Your soulmate is going through their memories now, one by one, slowly and carefully. They remember your face during certain conversations from that time. They remember moments when it looked like you wanted to say more, but something made you stop yourself. They remember how you would sometimes gently change the subject whenever they asked questions about that period of your life. Back then, they may have assumed you were avoiding honesty with them. Now they are wondering whether you were actually protecting them, even from the simple weight of knowing what you had done for them. Even the small, ordinary details of that time are coming back to them now with new meaning. A certain look on your face, a certain pause before you answered a question, a certain way you would gently steer the conversation somewhere safer. None of it seemed important back then. All of it feels important now. This realization has created a soft, strange ache in their chest. They wish more than anything right now that they could return to one particular moment. There was a day back then when you needed a little understanding too. You were quietly carrying something heavy, but because they did not know the full truth yet, they could not recognize the weight sitting behind your eyes. Maybe they were distracted that day. Maybe they misread your mood completely. Maybe they thought your quietness meant you were pulling away from them emotionally. If that same day happened today, they would respond so differently. Today, they would look at you a little longer. Today, they would gently ask another question. Today, they would say, "You don't always have to be strong around me." But time does not move backward, dear one. It only moves forward. And as it moves, it slowly reveals what it wants to reveal. And sometimes revelation is far more powerful than repetition ever could be, because it gives people the chance to choose differently going forward, with open eyes this time. Your soulmate is standing at exactly that choice point right now. They are realizing that knowing what you did creates a kind of responsibility inside them. Not a debt they owe to you, but a responsibility to become more honest with themselves. They can no longer pretend they do not understand your heart. They can no longer judge your feelings only by the moments when you happen to be more expressive with them. Something that was once hidden has now become undeniable evidence of who you truly are. And yet, there is something quietly frightening them too. They wonder whether you still care in that same quiet way today. They wonder whether too much time has passed between then and now. They wonder whether their earlier misunderstanding somehow changed something inside you over the years. And perhaps most painfully of all, they wonder whether they have discovered this truth too late to actually respond to it in a meaningful way. Dear one, please do not let that thought make you anxious. This unfolding story is not asking you to chase anyone. It is not calling you to prove yourself all over again. What was done from a sincere, honest heart never needs to turn into a performance afterward. Your worth was never dependent on whether another person eventually recognized what you gave them. The beauty of your action already existed before anyone ever applauded it. The purity of it was in the simple fact that you never required an audience in the first place. This is exactly why this discovery carries so much weight right now. If you had announced it right away, back when it happened, they might have simply said thank you and moved on with life. But because the truth stayed hidden for so long, time itself tested your motives, quietly, again and again. There were days when you could have easily revealed it. There were moments of frustration when bringing it up might have helped you win an argument. There were chances to say, "After everything I've done for you," and yet, every single time you resisted saying it. That restraint became part of the story too. And now your soulmate knows about it. They have started comparing what they learned about you with something else happening around them today. Someone else recently has been trying very hard to impress them. Someone who makes sure every kind gesture gets noticed. Someone who seems to want recognition for even the smallest effort they make. Normally, your soulmate might not have thought twice about this kind of behavior. But now, after learning your story, the contrast has become impossible for them to ignore. One person was quietly asking to be seen. You had done something meaningful while fully accepting the possibility that you might remain completely unseen forever. Your soulmate felt that difference immediately in their body, in their chest. This does not mean they are placing you high up on some kind of pedestal, dear one. You are still fully human inside this story. You have made mistakes along the way. You have had emotional moments you are not proud of. You have misunderstood things too, plenty of times. But somehow, that only makes this revelation even more powerful. Perfect people do not exist anywhere. What actually matters is what someone chooses to do when love becomes inconvenient, when there is nothing in it for them. You were given a moment when protecting someone brought you absolutely no visible reward, and you still chose protection anyway. Something inside your soulmate is now whispering, "I didn't know." And then, right behind that thought, another one is following close. "What else don't I know about this person?" That single question has become the doorway to everything that happens next. 'Cause dear one, there is more to this story. The hidden event was actually larger than they currently understand. Right now, they believe you simply protected them from one specific situation. But your decision back then may have quietly prevented a whole chain of consequences from ever reaching them. One choice changed another choice down the line. One conversation quietly prevented another difficult conversation from ever happening. One moment of restraint protected something they still value deeply today, even now. Dear soul, before we continue with today's angel message, I'd like to invite you into a small but meaningful act of faith for your soulmate journey. Love is one of heaven's greatest gifts, yet every precious connection can face moments of uncertainty, fear, or unseen negativity. If your heart feels led to place your soulmate connection into God's loving hands, you can sow your seed through Ko-Fi Super Thanks. You'll find the Ko-Fi link in the video description and the pinned comment. As you give, let your seed become a heartfelt intention of hope, inviting the angels to surround you and your soulmate with divine protection, healing, wisdom, and perfect timing. May your connection continue to grow under God's guidance, strengthened by love, peace, and His everlasting light. The Bible reminds us that every act of generous giving is an expression of faith. Proverbs 11 verse 25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." And Acts 20 verse 35 reminds us, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." When we give with a joyful heart, we honor God and place our trust in His perfect plan. If you feel called to sow this seed today, thank you from the bottom of my heart. May God bless your generosity, strengthen your soulmate bond, and fill your life with love, favor, and heavenly peace. Now, let's continue with today's angel message. Your soulmate is about to realize that the life they remember from that entire period might have unfolded very differently if you had chosen resentment instead of compassion in that one moment. They have started asking for more details now. Not gossip, not drama, real details. What exactly happened back then? Who knew about it? When did you decide to do what you did? Did you already understand what it would cost you personally? And then came the one question that made the person telling the story pause and hesitate for a moment. Did they ever say why they did it? There was a small silence after that question. Your soulmate noticed that pause immediately. Somehow, that pause told them the answer really mattered. The person eventually said that you had given a reason, but it was not the reason your soulmate had quietly expected to hear. You had not said, "Because I want them to love me." You had not said, "Because maybe one day they will finally choose me." You had not even said, "Because they would probably do the same thing for me one day." Your reason was much quieter than any of that. You had simply said something about wanting them to have peace, even if you were never a part of that peace yourself. When your soulmate heard this, something inside them broke wide open. Not in fear, dear one, in recognition, because there are certain sentences that expose the whole architecture of a person's heart, and that one sentence fully exposed yours. You were never trying to own their future. You simply wanted them protected inside of it, even if that future never included you at all. Your soulmate looked away for a moment when they heard this. They needed a little time, because suddenly their own memories were becoming emotional too. They remembered every time they feared that love might turn into ownership. They remembered people whose affection always seemed to come with invisible strings attached. They remembered promises that quietly turned into demands later on. And now, quite unexpectedly, they were learning that somewhere in their own story there had been someone who chose their well-being without attaching a single condition to it. That someone was you. But there is still something your soulmate does not fully understand yet. Your protection was never completely invisible. Someone else saw you do it. Someone watched you make that decision in real time. Someone saw exactly what happened right afterward. And that person has never forgotten a single detail of it. For a long time, that witness believed it was not their story to tell. They respected your silence, because they understood exactly why you wanted that moment to stay quietly buried in the past. But circumstances have shifted now, and the truth is beginning to surface without asking for your permission. Not to embarrass you in any way, but because some hidden things eventually become necessary pieces of another person's understanding of their own life. Your soulmate is about to hear from that very witness. And what this witness remembers is going to explain something your soulmate has quietly wondered about for a very long time. Why did you suddenly become quieter after that period of your life? They used to think you lost interest in them. They used to think your feelings had simply changed over time. They used to think maybe someone new had entered your heart instead. But none of those explanations were ever fully true. You became quieter because protecting them required you to carry something you could not explain without revealing what you had already promised yourself would stay secret forever. You chose silence, dear one, and your silence was misunderstood. That misunderstanding slowly created distance between you. Distance created questions in their mind. Questions created assumptions. And assumptions quietly changed the entire course of your connection over time. Your soulmate is seeing that whole chain of events clearly for the very first time. And as they sit with this, something gentle is shifting inside their understanding of love itself. They are starting to realize that silence is not always a wall. Sometimes silence is a shelter. Sometimes the quietest people in our lives are quiet precisely because they are holding something heavy so that we do not have to. We rarely think to ask what our loved ones are carrying in their silence, because silence looks empty from the outside. But silence is almost never empty. It is usually full of decisions we never got to see, full of moments where someone chose our comfort over their own need to be understood. Your soulmate is learning this lesson through you, dear one. And in some strange, beautiful way, this lesson is not only about you and them. It is a lesson that is quietly reaching everyone who hears this message today. Because somewhere in your own life, right now, there may be someone who has been silently protecting you in ways you have not yet discovered. And somewhere in your life, there may be someone you are quietly protecting too, without expecting anything in return. This pattern repeats itself again and again through every generation, through every family, through every soul connection that has ever existed. Quiet love keeps the world softer than it would otherwise be. This is exactly why today's discovery feels so much bigger to them than just a sweet story about something kind you once did. It has become a missing chapter in their own life story. It explains behavior they never fully understood before. It answers questions they had already stopped asking, having given up on ever knowing the truth. It reveals that a moment they once interpreted as you withdrawing from them may actually have been the quiet aftermath of a real sacrifice. And now they are wondering what might have happened if they had known back then what they know today. But something even more unexpected is beginning to happen inside them. They are no longer only thinking about the past. They are starting to think about reaching toward the future instead. There is a message slowly forming inside them right now. They have thought about writing it to you more than once already. They begin typing, then stop, then erase it, then begin again. What do you even say to someone who protected you and never expected you to find out? A simple thank you suddenly feels far too small for what happened. Why didn't you tell me feels almost unfair to ask, because they are beginning to understand exactly why you never did. They want to ask you if you remember. Of course you remember, dear one. Some choices leave a quiet mark on the person who makes them, even when absolutely no one else ever sees it happen. They want to tell you that they know now. But before they reach out, they feel they need one final piece of this story first. And that piece is already moving quietly toward them. The witness has agreed to speak. Your soulmate does not yet know what they are about to hear. Right now, they believe the biggest revelation has already happened. They believe discovering your secret protection was the whole truth, the complete story. It was not. There is something deeper still waiting on the other side of this. And dear one, whatever it is, whatever comes next in this unfolding story between you and your soulmate, I want you to hold on to one simple truth as you sit with all of this today. Love that protects without needing credit is one of the rarest and most sacred things a human heart can offer another person. You already know how to love this way. It already lives inside you. You do not need to prove your heart to anyone. Not even now. Not even with all of this coming to light. What you gave was already complete the moment you gave it, quietly, without conditions, without an audience. Whatever your soulmate chooses to do with this new understanding, whatever they decide to say or not say, your worth was never sitting inside their reaction. It was already sitting inside your own choice to love that way in the first place. If this message found you today, it did not find you by accident. Something in you needed to hear that your quiet love matters, that your unseen sacrifices matter, that the moments no one clapped for still counted, still mattered, still changed someone's life even when they didn't know it at the time. So take a slow breath with me right now, dear one. Place a hand over your heart if that feels comfortable, and simply let yourself receive this truth. You are the kind of soul who loves people well even when it costs you something. That is rare. That is beautiful. And that will always come back to you in its own perfect timing. Maybe you are wondering right now if anyone truly notices the quiet things you do. Maybe you have spent years giving without ever once asking to be thanked. And some small part of you has quietly wondered whether it even mattered. Hear this clearly today. It mattered. Every time you chose kindness when no one was watching, it mattered. Every time you protected someone's feelings instead of protecting your own pride, it mattered. Every time you stayed silent so someone else could stay peaceful, it mattered. Even if it never once made it into a conversation, even if it never once earned you a single word of recognition. The universe keeps its own quiet records. Dear one, nothing given from a sincere heart is ever truly lost. It moves outward into the world in ways we cannot always trace, and eventually, in its own time, it finds its way back to us, often when we least expect it and in a shape we never could have predicted. This is not about karma as punishment or reward. It is simply the gentle, natural rhythm of giving and receiving that has always existed underneath the surface of our lives. If you are someone who tends to give more than you receive, someone who protects more than you are protected, someone who loves quietly instead of loudly, please do not let this world convince you that this makes you invisible or unimportant. It makes you rare. It makes you deeply needed. It makes you the kind of soul that other people remember for the rest of their lives, even if they are slow to say so out loud. And if today you are the one who is waiting to discover a hidden truth about someone you love, someone whose quiet actions you have not yet fully understood, trust that the timing of your understanding is not an accident either. Some truths arrive early, and some truths take years to surface, but they arrive exactly when your heart is finally ready to receive them without breaking. Wherever you are in this story today, whether you are the one who protected quietly or the one who is only now discovering what was done for you, or simply a soul who felt something familiar stir while listening to these words, know that you are held. Know that you are seen, even in the moments you feel most unseen. Know that the love you give quietly is never wasted, and the love that was quietly given to you was never small. Before you go, tell me in the comments, has there ever been a moment when you quietly protected someone you loved and never told them the full truth about it? Share a simple word or just a heart, so this circle of quiet love can grow a little bigger today. Thank you for sitting with these words, dear one. Carry this feeling with you gently through the rest of your day. Dear beautiful soul, this angel's message for you channel is a sacred spiritual home, created for faith, healing, and divine guidance. A place where hearts awaken and lives are gently transformed through divine messages. We warmly invite you to subscribe and stay connected, because the divine is always preparing something greater for your journey, something you are meant to receive in divine timing. If you feel moved to support this mission, you can sow your seed here for your soulmate blessings and divine love fulfillment. Your contribution is not just support. It is an energetic agreement with love, healing, and divine alignment in your own life. When you give with intention, it opens doors. Love flows more freely, happiness expands, and abundance multiplies in unexpected ways. Many believe that giving in faith activates a return of peace, joy, and emotional fulfillment in relationships and life. Whether it is $11, $22, $33, or $55, your generosity helps us continue spreading these divine messages of hope, healing, and soulmate guidance across the world. Every seed sown into this mission helps hearts heal, faith return, and souls reconnect with love. This is more than a channel. It is a movement of light, unity, and divine timing. Your support allows this sacred work to grow, touching lives that are searching for answers, comfort, and spiritual direction. We are all connected in this journey, and together we rise as one community under divine love. Let us open our hearts to the abundance that is already on its way. Amen.